Hello, welcome back to this final installment of the Dungeons & Lasers Pre-Painted Caves preview. So I've done this in 3 videos, going over the individual zones and the themes and the sub-themes. Get my terminology right. In the first video, I talked a little bit about clipping these out and setting them up and my process for that. In the next video, we discuss storage and what to do with these things when you're done playing with them. I have to put them away, at least the way I'm doing it right now. And lastly, we're going to look at the demonic caves, and we're going to do a review overall for all of the Dungeons & Lasers pre-painted set. I'm also including in this the pre-painted portions of the bonus features, or the stretch goals. So I've assembled all those weird rock bridges and other things and doorways and stuff, and I'm going to show you some examples of what those look like all put together. And those all came pre-painted too, just kind of mixed in with the other stuff in the bonus items. And I guess it's always good to lead off with the main theme, and that is the demonic cave. The demonic cave's classic features are chains, skeletons, literally everywhere there's a skeleton. They're in every nook and cranny of these maps, of these tiles. And also lots and lots of knives, lots of pokey, purpley, metallic knives sticking out everywhere. It also has quite a bit of blood splatter, I've noticed, in different areas, especially some of the sub-themes where bloodletting is a given. Another feature of this is that it's got a bridge that leads from one section to another if you build it according to the artwork on the box. And of course, the big advantage to these, it kind of goes without saying, but I have to say, a big advantage to these is that you can build these into whatever you want. They kind of Lego together. I like to start with what's presented in terms of artwork on the box. What was weird about this one is normally they would have something to cover up some area, and then you would have, and I've been showing you as we go along, and in fact other sets in the sub-themes do this, but they'll have that little area where, like a raised area that you don't put bricks underneath. Well, this had none of those. This had none of those kind of like areas, and in fact, when I tried to match the artwork, this came out a little bit bigger. Like there was a couple of, I had to add another row of tiles kind of off to the end. I think it was this one. And because of that, this looks a little less dense in terms of walls and stuff like that. I ended up with a lot extra just to kind of make this perimeter wall in a similar way. I think I got this side pretty close, but that side is a little bit light on the interior walls and stuff. This is a really, really big footprint for a kit. Has a lot of these little edge pieces too to kind of dress up the sides of it. And it's kind of an interesting shape. I like that. I like the bridge in between and stuff. Of course, I didn't realize quite how many bridges we'd be dealing with. More on that at the end of the video. When we get to the bonus items. This set in particular has the biggest problem with the blurry printing. It's got the printing is offset. I think I got about 2 sprues that are not correctly printed. This set suffered the most from something we're going to talk about in the review portion of this, where with the offset printing, I think I had about 2 sprues equivalent or so that seemed to be not printed correctly. Much of it is fine, and when you put it all together, it kind of blends in. Like if you had to play Dungeons & Dragons tomorrow, it's not going to ruin the game or anything, but I do, when I pay for a premium product, I do like to receive it as intended. You know, and a manufacturer mistake like that, I'm going to just ask for a refund, or I'm going to ask for a new sprue is what I'm going to ask for. Although I haven't really looked into it too much yet, I did see an update where they said if you encounter something like that, just to let them know and they'll make it right. And I believe them. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. Up next, we have our torture chamber. And our torture chamber comes equipped with this mound in the middle that looks a lot like the other kits like this. It's that familiar cloverleaf. They've got 2 of these kind of cloverleafy shapes. That's what I'm calling this. I'm not sure if that really is what you would call that shape, but This one, again, has got the skulls and stuff in there, and the blood splatter. Got chains. Something unique on this one is we got little people in cages here around the perimeter. I have not glued this down. This might be potentially something you'd want to glue in here because it falls apart real easy. In fact, it just takes the slightest touch of this thing to knock those little doors over. So this one is a little fiddly. You might want to glue it. You might want to glue some of those cages down so that they stop. But overall, this is a cool little set. This is a nice little extra thing that completely makes sense in this type of dungeon that you'd kind of run through and end up in one of these places. So let's set this over here. Let's pull up the other cloverleaf. And its distinctive features are some runes carved into the floors, little piles of skeletons in every corner of the room. Got this interesting pattern and stuff. That's kind of neat. Lots of runes inscribed and little bones put like the bones are put just so, like maybe that's part of the ceremony or something. And of course we've got an altar here in the middle that looks like it's ready for a sacrifice. I really love there's little things inscribed in the wall, in the floors and stuff. And it's kind of neat that they continue even across other tiles and things. Pretty neat. This next theme is a really odd shape, and is sort of capitalizing on that 10,000 feet down kind of concept of like everything outside of the walls is like a big ledge or something. So we've got the combat arena. And the combat arena has these kind of ledges that you can use to enter this little fighting circle, which I assume is just part of the fun. We've got these little gates here on the side. They kind of seem like entrance gates. I can see that being on the outside, maybe as you enter this thing, or maybe going towards this. Maybe that's the big fighting part. This one has, this is one of the more unique sets, and it's definitely the defining set of this one. If I was going to have one set out of the demonic caves, I think this is my favorite, and it's the one I would want. It's got these grates through here, which are really cool. And that doesn't appear anywhere else on these other ones, so that's kind of neat. And so many spikes. There are little spikes everywhere. In fact, instead of a bunch of these nubs, the little circle nubs that I talked about putting between these things, instead of that, there's a whole bunch of these spikes that you can just install into the floor. So they're just spikes everywhere. So if you're going to fight on this one, there'd be perils all over the place. And there are just, again, skulls in every crammed into every nook and cranny here. It's funny, in the scale, a lot of these would be really small. I didn't really think of that at first. But, yeah, these skulls would be really tiny compared to, 28 millimeter miniatures and stuff. So, ew. And that's all the sub-themes for the demonic caves. Alright, so let's take a look at some of those stretch goals. So I was pleased as punch when I reached into the stretch goals box and found that many of those tiles were also pre-painted, which meant that there was even less to paint. And a lot of, this one box that I opened, it had a lot of mainly stone bridges and stuff. And I started looking at them and playing with them a little bit. I noticed online there was a really popular video. It had like a couple of thousand views that had some questions about these things. So I thought it'd be interesting to talk about them a little bit. So in this set, you're going to get a couple of different types of bridges. They all have the familiar connectors and stuff that we're used to seeing. But some of them you can make into a platform. And they'll have this little entrance to the platform. If you want, you can take that concept and make a really wide or really long bridge. I don't think I'm even using all of the stuff, but you can kind of offset these stairways and make a really long bridge. These do connect. These have an interesting little piece too, and there's a lot of extras of these. So we've got little end pieces like this, a lot of these in different shapes too. And they've got a nub right there, that familiar nub. That's going to fit into these little risers like that. And so you'll have, these don't connect to anything, so you can put this on the table or as part of the adventure someplace. Or you can connect them and put them at the end of this and make a really long bridge. These pieces, which are two pieces that kind of connect together, I should show that. So you got some pieces like this, which fit together in a sort of unconventional way. They have these little nubs, and so instead of fitting together with these, they have little tiny nubs. These can break off, so be careful. And they will fit together like that. They become a little walkway. Now this version, these do that exact same thing. This version will connect directly to the theme. So you can see it's got a little thing there. So you could take this right off a map. So this one you can take right off a map and connect it that way. The other interesting thing too about this particular type is that it's got a turn in it, so you can use it to make turns. You could probably even use it if you wanted to kind of extend it in a different way too. Or you can use it to make a turn. So you can use this to bridge different areas of your map. Kind of with that whole concept that just anything on the other side of it is just some immense drop someplace. You can't connect. It is a different height than these. So if you try to put these together, it's going to be a little bit different height. And that was the subject of that video that I mentioned. They didn't know why these couldn't connect together. They're meant for different things. This has a different purpose than this. This is more for these risers and that whole thing. And you could use it to make a small platform, you know, inside of the map, or you can use it as a little bridge. The other thing they show doing is using those little end pieces to kind of make a raised area or a little ledge within the map. So if you've got two walls, and I don't have a good example of this right here, but if you had two walls, you could they're kind of close together. You could sort of use it to bridge the gap and make a little ledge that way too if you wanted. That's what they showed in the instructions. I've noticed the paint scheme for most of this too is all kind of rocky caves. So very much fits into that whole rocky cave sort of theme. Another thing we got was this set of traps. Another offset printing issue on these two. But yeah, you flip these over and you got different traps and stuff. It's kind of neat. Very obviously the Rocky Caves color scheme. My guess is you'd start that Rocky Caves in pretty much every scenario and then move on to the other things. Nobody just starts off in the belly of the beast, you know. So I made this little platform to show you all the different doors. They've got a bunch of double door options. One double door option they have is kind of looks like it was made to go with the demonic caves. It's got these kind of real sinister looking archways, and you can connect double doors to that. The other kind of double doors that they made are these stone ones. So if you want a more, less foreboding, perhaps, entranceway, you could go with that. Another thing they have on here are these little half arches. And you could take those half arches and install like these grates and stuff to them. They have these hinges. And they're using them for all these little parts that you're looking at. There's two different types of hinges. I'm going to show you on this next one what I mean. So one type is kind of straight, and the other one's got this sort of elaborate woodwork. The elaborate woodwork works great on the doors, but doesn't work for like these little pieces I'm showing you now. So this is something else that they got. It's like some little round doors with maybe a prison that's underneath. With those little things, they open on the little flat panels, but they will not open if you try to put the little wood door panels on there. I'll let that on there to remind myself to tell you. Something else they had in there was this little trap. They had this one little piece of rock that kind of comes over, and I was like, "What's that for?" And then I found this big swinging blade. So I think it's for this trap here. And there's actually a couple of traps. Some of them will go in the hinges, and some of them go in just the little round holes and stuff. But got a nice little trap there as well. I kind of had a hard time figuring out that there's this one piece that in the illustration it took two pieces, and the way it took two pieces, and because it didn't distinguish that there were two pieces there, it looked like it was one piece that I couldn't find, but it ended up just being this base that this thing attaches to. Yeah, it was this thing. So if you take two of these together, it makes a little hole in the ground, but you can just kind of add this to one of those plates, because it's just got the one single nub on the bottom. And then you can use this to make those little archways and stuff. I think there's a couple of these little archway areas, and that's what you need to make those. It just kind of goes onto the ground, and you can add stuff that goes up around it. So that took me a second to figure out, even with looking at the instructions. And I did have to kind of go to the instructions to understand how they intended to use these things. In fact, pulling them out and stuff like that, I was not very enthused with this stuff. But after I got it out and played with it and discovered all the different ways you could use it to connect the other things, I'm sure I'll be using them all the time. It's the perfect way to kind of connect all these things together without connecting them together. There's another element I thought was really neat that I haven't brought up yet, and that is this wood bridge. This was in a different box, I think. There were two boxes that had some stuff in it, and I have left out all the ice. There's a whole bunch of ice terrain and more bridges and other stuff with that. I haven't messed with that at all. So that technically is pre-painted if you just want to use it as it is to represent the ice. This is a cool little bridge. At this end, it's got this. This is another one of those little hinge covers. And I've already put, that came with one of those on there. This has a feature this bridge has are these little pieces that come out, and they do, it's weird, they do fit perfectly in there. I think I actually lost one of them. I'm gonna have to look around, but I think this had three little pieces originally, and so I guess you could roll, and maybe the bridge would break as you go. I'm kind of thinking they left them like that. No, what a clever thing to do. So you got a little bit of maybe you roll to see if you make it across the bridge and chunks of it fall off or something. Pretty neat. Pretty neat little feature. And I didn't realize that these fit in here perfectly, but I was like, I kept messing with them, and eventually they did just kind of slide up. You have to trim them real good to get them to fit, but they will just kind of slide right in there. I got this thing too. I have no idea what it is. Be sure to let me know in the comments. Okay, now I think it's time for the overall review. So if you saw my unboxing video, just from the thumbnail, you already know exactly what I've spent on this. I try to be really clear and open about what I've spent on a particular thing, and so when I show you, you can judge for yourself if that's something you need for that price. I'm thinking most often the answer is going to be no, and I am aware that there's probably pretty good resale market for some of this stuff. If I did decide I didn't want it, I had already pledged for all of this stuff unpainted, and I decided to increase my pledge without really looking at without a big proof of quality. Like, they hadn't already released some stuff. There have been some videos, but I feel like it's really hard to judge, like, as a person who makes videos. So I've made videos of this stuff, and then I go and I edit it, and I'm like, you still don't, it's hard to get it. It's hard to get the feeling of what this stuff really is like. So if I'm looking at these sets objectively, now that I've seen everything, would I do it again? And the answer is kinda, not as much. I think what I would probably have done has gotten all of the Rocky Caves, or maybe 2 of the Rocky Caves. I like the paint job on them. I don't love it, but I don't hate it at all. Like I think it's good. I think it's good, and I think it's probably maybe even better than I would have bothered to paint it. I have a feeling if I would have painted these, it would have been a pretty quick dry brushing and stuff. And I might have gone in with details, but I don't want to paint a million skeletons and these things. I don't want to go through and do all that. It's just kind of tedious. And there's a lot of these things. And so what's nice about having something that's tiled, machine printed, is that you usually get a consistency. And really the biggest ding for them on this whole project is this particular set. This printing on here doesn't look very good. In fact, it's funny. It looks blurry. Like you can see it, and your eyes tell you it's in focus, but it's not in focus because of the weird offsetting of the print. I'm glad it wasn't 100% that way, so I can see the potential. Like where it worked, it looks really good, and where it didn't work, it doesn't. They've offered to replace it, and I'm going to submit a request for a replacement, and I'm going to pull this stuff aside too, and I'll just let you know how that goes. I'm not deeply worried about all that as far as like getting my replacement parts and stuff like that. The demonic caves for me are just, boy, that's a very specific kind of dungeon. You know what I mean? Now, where the Rocky Caves were real nondescript and could be a bunch of different things, these demonic caves are obviously, places of evil. There's nothing good ever happened inside of any of these caves. They're just bad. They're just bad places. Whereas the other ones could kind of go, or the Rocky Caves anyway, could go either way. Another super situational one is the Belly of the Beast. I love that one, and I might have been tempted to pick that one up anyway because it's just such a unique thing. But boy, yeah, talk about a very specific scenario. So unless you're fighting monsters like that all the time, maybe that's not the... that could be difficult to justify investing some extra cash in. Maybe get the unpainted version and make it your own kind of monster. The overall red theme on that one too is kind of oppressive. It's a lot of red, and it's a very, very gruesome kind of play set to play on. Boy, I could easily see a campaign though that just used all these sets. In fact, that's kind of why I got it. I imagined starting off in the Rocky Caves and going through battling some spider stuff, and then making your way through deeper into the cavern until you get to the demonic part of the caves, and then deeper still you find the beast. So I think it's good. If you're a dungeon master, if you play Dungeons and Dragons or Pulp Alley or miniature war games and stuff, this is a cool set. It's really easy to store. It's very durable. This doesn't feel like it's going to break on you, or get scratched up. You can sit there and store it. Big plastic, chunky pieces, extremely fun to put together. Believe it or not, I had a lot of fun just assembling these sets and kind of getting them together. And even while I was playing with the bridges and how they work, I was getting very excited for the potential for, linking all these things together in weird ways, like having walls, something kind of come over a wall and then lead over to another part of the cave. So I feel like for the most part, it's a good value for the money. Maybe if you get the demonic caves, maybe just check the sprues before you pull them all apart and let them know if you have a problem. It's kind of a new process. I believe this was the first of the processes. I think overall I could call it success. I'm thinking this is a resin print, so this might be resin on top of plastic. Resin printing has been kind of a big thing lately. I'm not sure how they do this in the three-dimensional areas and stuff, unless it goes on a turntable or something. I'm not sure how that's done. It is kind of neat to think that there's just two boxes left, and half of them are ice sprues to paint, and then a couple of 3 bigger models. They got the Minotaur, they got the Balrog, which is going to be a big project, and then or Balor or whatever they called it, and that two-headed giant, and then some assorted little bits and pieces, some more traps and some dwarves and stuff. Really not much to paint at all. I'll have it done probably by the end of the summer. Assuming I finish Nemesis. I gotta get back into that. But as the sets go, I gotta rate that Rocky Caves as the best. It is the best. I give it like probably 8. 8 out of 10, which is good for pre-painted terrain. Trust me. And these other ones, boy, if you needed a Belly of the Beast thing, that would be definitely 8 or 9 out of 10. It's great for that specific thing. And this thing here, if the printing was better, it would be a little higher up. But I feel like this cave is more specific. It has a more specific look to it, and I would probably rank it a little bit down because it's not quite as versatile as the others. Give it like a 7. And if you get one with printing issues, it's a 6 because you gotta go get those things replaced. But honestly, if you saw the pictures of these things and you got any of these sets, I don't think you'd be extremely disappointed. I think they're a lot of fun. They look really, really cool on the table. I'm anxious. I'm going to change my background. I've got kind of like a swamp table topper on right now, which seemed like it kind of worked. But I'd love to change this out with like some. I'd like to change this out with like some black or something that really says Deep Caves to it. I'm a big fan of Dungeons & Lasers, and I think a lot of that plays into me not regretting this decision. This is a heck of a lot to spend on terrain, especially for me, because I don't play a lot of the games that use this terrain. I'd like to. I just don't get to do it very often. And a lot of times the excuse would be, well, I don't really have a cool set to play on. Well, I don't have that excuse anymore. And so hopefully Owen and I will be delving into some caves. We're going to do some Pulp Alley in here and send some dwarves down to fight monsters in the caves. And that will be maybe a future video. And folks, if this video has helped you at all, be sure to click like. And if you're a big Dungeons & Lasers fan like me, you might enjoy some other videos. I've got a deep dive right there with all my Dungeons & Lasers stuff. And the unboxing, if you'd like to see all the rest of this stuff, you can see it all right there. And be sure to subscribe because I'd love to see you again. Until next time, enjoy your games. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.